3 golden eagles for War Thunder. Link in the description. Hello you sexy beasts, welcome back to War Thunder. This is the Jagdtiger, a tier 5 German tank destroyer sitting at a battle rating of 7.0. Now sitting at battle rating 7.0 it can of course face anything from 6.0, where it absolutely rocks, and 8.0, where it absolutely sucks. That kind of rhymed. Cool. The Jagdtiger features a 128mm Pak 44 gun with 40 rounds total capacity. This is actually the same gun that the mouse gets at 7.7. It also features a 7.92mm machine gun that sadly is not coaxial. It is actually mounted in the hull, and we are going to touch on the problems of this a bit later on in the video. Now the Jagdtiger is a fearsome tank destroyer, probably one of the best tank destroyers in the game for its combination of a big gun with just amazing explosive power, one of the most reliable APHE shells, and of course all that armor. The tank itself weighs 75.2 tons, has 700 horsepower and as such has a 9.3 horse per ton power to weight ratio. Now, it does get a decently nice top speed. As you can see, we are currently at 39 km per hour. It can go all the way up to 42 km per hour. However, that is only in a straight line on good ground, because this tank has one of the worst hull traverses I've ever encountered in my life. Which is problematic since you are in a tank destroyer which does not get a turret. Pretty much in order to aim your gun at anything, you have to move the whole hull, which can prove problematic in this tank. Adding to that, the gun handling isn't exactly the best either. The gun is extremely heavy, and as such it only has a 5 degrees per second horizontal traverse and a 3 degrees per second vertical traverse. And also you do have a pretty good angle in which you can move the gun around without moving the rest of the hull. It still takes a lot of time to point that gun at anything really, which means that this tank isn't really designed to go for reactionary shots. The vertical guidance of the gun is between -7 and +15 degrees. Nothing really special here. The -7 is not the worst there is around, but it's definitely not enough to go for the hill cresting roll, which would be amazing in this thing because it has some amazing armor. Now the Jagdtiger has pretty, well, normal armor from the sides. The sides in the back are around 80mm, which is the same as the King Tiger, which the chassis of this is based on. The front, however, is... Alright, get this. The front of the turret has 250mm of thickness, but due to the rounding and the angling and all that stuff, you have around 270 on the weakest parts, 300 to 400mm of thickness of armor on the thickest parts. Including of that, you also get a 200mm gun mantles on top of that armor, which makes the gun mantle of this thing impenetrable by even heat FS shells. The hull, on the other hand, is not so good. You get between 100, we get around 150mm on the upper plate, which is sloped back to an effective thickness of about 210mm, with the machine gun port proving a weak spot there. The machine gun port is pretty much flat, and if you can hit it correctly, that's only 150mm thick. The roll plate has an effective thickness of between 160 and 170mm, and is actually the biggest weak spot on the front of this tank. Just behind the lower plate is a transmission, which renders this tank completely useless. The thing I've noticed in my time in the Jagdtiger is how extremely long it takes to repair anything. If they destroy your tracks, it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to repair. If you destroy your transmission, it can take anywhere between 30 seconds to a full minute of repair time. And since you are in a tank destroyer, if your tracks or your transmission are down, you are pretty much useless. You can only fire in that cone that you have in front of you, and given, if the enemy gets in front of that cone, you are pretty much just wrecked them, because this gun is absolutely awesome for one-shots, but it is very easy for the enemy to just take your tracks out and flank around you and destroy it that way. That's the biggest way, the biggest way to destroy the Jagdtiger, which is why this tank isn't really made for city combat. Now the gameplay you can see in the back is lucky, I gotta say. Got a very good game on Stalingrad here, but this is definitely not the hunting ground of the Jagdtiger, so I don't want to give you guys the false idea that this thing is a city combat tank. It can be used as such as long as you keep your flanks covered. If you have some teammates around and you can just look down a long road, then yes, this thing is absolutely amazing. It can fulfill the heavy tank role as long as your enemy only comes from front. The problem with city combat is it's very easy to flank around you. And once an enemy gets on your sides, you are dead. You are absolutely dead. Now let's take a look at the shells that the Jagdtiger gets. The stock shell is an APHE type and has 266mm at close ranges, but does trickle down pretty severely at longer ranges. The muzzle velocity is 930 meters per second and it has 786 grams of effective explosive filler, which means that wherever you hit it, it's most likely going to be a one-shot. As are the bombs that the B-25 was dropping. Now the Jagdtiger is a huge target, and being so slow is a prime target for bombers. That B-25 tried to kill me 3 times, and somehow didn't manage to do so. Now alongside the stock shell you also get the HE shell, which has 42mm of penetration, which means that the HE shell is actually effective against all tanks as long as you can hit the underside of them. If you hit the underside of the hull, that explosive filler is just going to punch right through the lower plate. Your only unlockable shell option is the Panzergranate 43, which has 269mm of penetration at close range, but since it is fitted with a ballistic cap, it retains its penetration much better over long ranges, trickling down to 208mm at 2 kilometers distance. This is pretty much a shell you should use at all times, and once you unlock the shell there's no reason to go with the stock shell, since the explosive filler is the same, the muzzle velocity is the same, the bounce chances are the same, but you get better penetration over range and also on angled armor. Now the shells of this 128mm anti-tank gun are absolutely amazing. Pretty much everything we shot at so far was a one-shot kill, except for that, I think it was a T-32 at the start of the match, which he hit in the cannon barrel. And even that got immediately blacked out, meaning that he couldn't fire back without blowing his cannon barrel up. I've watched this replay 3 times already and I still love that part. That guy just didn't give any fucks whatsoever. But that's the beauty of the 128mm Pak 44. Even though I was aiming for that guy, I was hiding behind there trying to get shots at my side, which he did get a shot in, but it seems like he was using a solid shot shell. And since this tank is so spacious on the inside, the enemy kind of has to know exactly where your crew members are in order to kill them. That guy just came out in front and was obliterated. And that really is the beauty of this gun. Now, the gun of course has its problems. Of course the handling is the worst part about it. It takes so long to get this gun on target that it's really not good when you are on the move. Especially trying to go from the move to standing still and getting your gun on target takes a couple of seconds, which is not good when you're trying to go for reactionary shots. Now the armor does allow you to withstand a couple of shots. It's pretty much impenetrable by any type of APHE shell. Even the T10M's APHE shell is going to have trouble getting through the armor of this thing, especially the turret. The hull, not so much. The hull can be impenetrable, but the turret is pretty much impenetrable. However, there is one big nemesis, actually 2, but at this battle rating you mostly tend to face the one, which is APDS rounds and fast-firing guns, which are both characteristics of British tanks. Yes, British tanks are actually the nemesis of the Jagdtiger, with their good mobility their fast-firing guns, and their APDS shells, which can have upwards of 300mm of penetration and have no problem punching even through the sides of the turret of this thing. It isn't exactly a turret, but you get the point. The front of the gun compartment, let's say. However, against Soviet tanks, against Soviet teams, you won't really have many problems. They tend to rely mostly on APHE shells, and you can pretty much bounce them off all day long. Now, using my active tree camouflage here, there's a T-34 in the front of me. Now, this is problematic. I do not want to advance too much for fear of the T-34 flanking around me. That tank is very mobile, and if he gets on my sides, I am dead. But I have no idea what I was doing. Now, my guesses are he was trying to get a shot into my tracks, so that they could go around me, but he stuck around way too long. He probably thought that, the only thing he can hit is my engine really, and the reload on this thing is so long that he can probably just repair before I can get another shot in, but never underestimate the explosive power of the shell. It doesn't really matter where you hit. That's the beauty about this tank. It really doesn't matter where you hit. Most of the time it's going to be a one-shot kill. Further on the gameplay, we are even going to face off against the Tortoise, which is infamous for its survivability, as it has a lot of crew and a lot of space in between them. Which means that tank can tank a surprising amount of shots, since you have to kill every single crew member. This thing doesn't have any problems with it. Now, given the battle range, the Jagdtiger is an excellent tank at lower battle ratings. Anything up to 7.0, as long as it doesn't face British tanks, and if it faces Soviet tanks, it can go even higher than that. Anything that doesn't have APDS shells or Heat FS shells, this thing rocks in. It fulfills the heavy tank role, it fulfills the tank destroyer role, it fulfills the Doom cannon role. There's almost nothing that can withstand the penetrative power and the explosive power of this 128mm shell. And that in combination with your amazing armor means that you can just hold choke points, hold objectives, as long as you keep your distance, and just scare an entire enemy team into submission. But since the tank itself has such extremely poor traverse and gun handling, combined with really long reload and really long repair times, you cannot afford to get caught with your pants down in close ranges. If you get too close to the enemy and they know what they are doing, you have no chance against them. You maybe get one shot off, but if you can't get your shot on target, you are dead. The easiest way to deal with the Jagdtiger is to go for the transmission. And since that is just behind a weak spot, which is the lower glacis, it really isn't hard to do. Especially if the Jagdtiger is trying to go over a hill, it is very easy to penetrate the lower plate, maybe take out the driver in the meantime, and just go for the transmission and force that thing to be stationary. And as you can see, Tortoise, no problem. Now, going back to the machine gun, which I was talking about earlier. Since the machine gun is mounted in the front of the hull, it is rather hard to use them to spot the enemy effectively. Most of the time I found myself having my hull covered, of course, because that is exactly what you should do in order to cover your weak spots up, especially the lower plate. But when you do that, you can't really use your machine gun, which kind of leaves you in this situation where you can be on your own. There's an enemy about to flank you, and you can't ask for the help of your teammates because you can't ping the enemy with your machine guns. And also, the shells of the 128mm gun are a bit weird. Even though they travel at 930 meters per second, they feel slower than they really are. And they have kind of a weird drop-off, which made it, at least for me personally, very hard to hit those long-range targets. However, given all those drawbacks, the Jagdtiger has one of the best APHE shells. Anything you penetrate is most likely going to blow up in one shot. At long ranges, this thing is also pretty much impenetrable. The hull is still decent enough to bounce shots at long range, and the turret is just pretty much impenetrable by anything that has an APDS or Heat FS shells. Heat FS and APDS, of course, are the doom of this tank, and if you find yourself in an 8.0 match, you are kind of screwed. But anything 7.0 and below, and especially if you don't face the British teams, you can just feast on the enemy. On top of that, you also get a lot of crew. The Jagdtiger has 6 crew, which means that even if you take a shot, you can still stay in the battle. There's a lot of wiggle room for you to take some shots and still be effective. Well, effective not so much, but still survive. However, since our repair times are so long, it's going to take you very, very, very long to actually get back into battle. Another single biggest point about the Jagdtiger is just the amount of fear it strikes in the hearts of the enemy. At least me personally, every time I see a Jagdtiger on the enemy battlefield, every time I have to come across one, I shit my pants. I'm not even kidding. That thing just strikes fear in me. Because the gun is just... it's deadly. You do not want to get hit by that gun. Now, of course, if you know what you're doing, which means taking out the tracks, taking out the transmission, going for the machine gun port, or even maybe destroying the gun itself, if you know what you're doing, it is very easy to deal with. But if you don't, and a lot of people don't, this thing is one of the most powerful tools in War Thunder. Anyways guys, this has been it for this video. Hopefully I've helped you out a bit with and against Jagdtiger. If you have some experiences you would like to share with the rest of the community, leave them down in the comment section down below. On the top right corner you can now vote for the next vehicle to be appearing. I think the next review is on the T-32, I think that's the winner of the last poll. And I'm going to put up some more options for you to vote in, and you can choose for the next vehicle to be featured after the T-32 on, hopefully, I think it's Thursday. Anyways, if you like this video, leave me a like rating and subscribe if you're new around here. My name is MikeGoesBoom. Thanks for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find a slight